Okay. Hello, hello. Marty Braden coming to you from Bountiful, Utah again. If you're new to my channel, let me explain what it's all about. I wrote a book titled An Atheist Delusion, a Latter-day Saints perspective on Richard Dawkins' anti-theist, anti-Christ book, A God Delusion. In fact, I think I have it right here. Let me just show it again. So those of you who may not have seen it, okay, just got a lot of books there, a lot of pages to the book. Anyhow, I thought it would be fun to review my book by doing short 15-minute videos on the many topics I've covered in my book. I'm getting close to finishing my review of the introduction to my book, which, by the way, is 72 pages long. That's a long introduction for sure. Before I go and start walking through all of the 10 chapters from Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion. And so I cover all his arguments, his postulates against God's existence, and that'll happen once I finish the introduction. So this is part 24. I closed off part 23 where I covered the history of the LDS Church's official stance on evolution, and now I'm going to pick things up from where I left off the last time. So let me jump right to there now. I mentioned that James E. Talmage wrote The Earth and Man, and so I'm going to read a little bit of that because it really sets the stage of what the leaders of the church were grappling with and the things that they were discussing. Genesis 1, verses 1 through 2 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Any question as to when that beginning was is largely futile because it is unanswerable. In the first place, we have no time unit by which to measure back through the ages to the time at which, so far as the earth is concerned, time began. Years are inadequate in any attempted survey of the stages of the earth's development, as are miles to the astronomer who would span the distances of interstellar space. It speaks in terms of light years, such unit being the distance traversed by a ray of light speeding at the rate of approximately 186,000 miles per second throughout the entirety of a year. That's one light year. And we're talking trillions of light years. That's quite a distance. Secondly, we are without information as to what stage of Earth's development is indicated by the beginning. And what is a beginning in nature? At best, it is but a new start in advance of what had passed up to that point of time. And every beginning is an ending of what went immediately before, even as every consummation is a commencement of something greater, higher, and therefore superior to the past. The earth older than man. To the thoughtful mind, there can be no confusion of the beginning spoken of in the opening verse of Genesis with the advent of man upon the changing earth. For by the scriptural record itself, we learn of stage after stage, age after age of Earth's processes by which eventually this planet became capable of supporting life, vegetable, animal, and human in due course. Whether or not scientists have been able to see, however dimly, the way by which the Earth as an orb in space was formed matters little except as a subject of academic interest. For many years it was very generally believed that the Earth, once formless and void, passed through stages of cooling, of superheated gas to liquid, thence to a solid state, as the nebular theory assumed. But this conception has given way to the later thought that the Earth is a solid spheroid, has resulted from the bringing together of particles once diffused in space, this being the basis of the planetesimal hypothesis, a hypothesis in astronomy where the planets have evolved by aggression from planetesimals in terms of our solar system. The Big Bang hypothesis is a theory of how our universe originated from a small singularity, and so our Earth as well as ourselves are made from stardust. But this we know, for both revealed and discovered truth, that is to say, both scripture and science, so affirm that plant life antedated animal existence, and that animals preceded man as tenants of earth. I would ask if the Son of God can turn water into wine in a minute or two and make the earth's rotation look as though it has stopped rotating for 3 days and make a mountain land on top of a valley during a 3-day cataclysmic event, why not create each stage of creation in a day represented by 24 hours? I'm not saying that's what happened, but we got to consider, when you consider the power of these beings. I'm just asking and not claiming. It's truly something to think about, right? Life and death before man's advent. According to the conception of geologists, the earth passed through ages of preparation, to us unmeasured and immeasurable, during which countless generations of plants and animals existed in great variety and profusion. Did they ever die before the earth fell? That's the question. When you talk about these new and next countless generations, did they just grow upon, or did some of it die? That's where the argument is. And gave in part the very substance of their bodies to help form certain strata which are still existent as such. This was written before the introduction of radioactive isotope dating techniques. The oldest, that is to say, the earliest rocks thus far identified in land masses reveal the fossilized remains of once living organisms, plant and animal. The coal strata upon which the world of industry so largely depends are essentially but highly compressed and chemically changed vegetable substance. The whole series of chalk deposits and many of our deep sea limestones contain the skeletal remains of animals. These lived and died, age after age, while the earth was yet unfit for human habitation. But what about the great flood laying down all those strata, as research has found the case to be today? Lived and died? Really? Also, what about the theory that this earth was once inhabited by a people, and after its course of existence and resurrection the earth died, but was reorganized for us? A new group of God's children? Maybe. Is that possible? I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just not going there yet. It's just another possibility, or dare I say, postulate, a guess. From the simple to the complex. From the fossil remains of plants and animals found in the rocks, the scientist points to a very definite order in the sequence of life embodiment. For the older rocks, the earlier formations reveal to us organisms of simplest structure only, whether of plants or animals. These primitive species were aquatic. Land forms were of later development. Some of these simpler forms of life have persisted until the present time, though with great variation as the result of changing environment. Geologists say that these very simple forms of plant and animal bodies were succeeded by others more complicated. And in the indestructible record of the rocks, they read the story of advancing life from the simple to the more complex, from the single-celled protozoan to the highest animals, from the marine algae to the advanced types of flowering plant, to the apple tree, the rose, and the oak. What a fascinating story is inscribed upon the stony pages of the earth's crust. And the Lord will reveal things in the earth, things on the earth, and so forth. A thing to think about. The geologist, who through long and patient effort has learned at least a little of the language in which these truths are written, finds the pages illustrated with pictures, which for fidelity of detail excel the best efforts of our modern engravers, lithographers, and half-tone artists. The pictures in the rocks are the originals. The rest at best but copies. In due course came the crowning work of this creative sequence, the advent of man. Concerning this all-important event, we are told that scientists and theologians are at hopeless and irreconcilable variance. I regard the assumption or claim, whichever it be, as an exaggeration. Discrepancies that trouble us now will diminish as our knowledge of pertinent facts is extended. The Creator has made record in the rocks for man to decipher, but he has also spoken directly regarding the main stages of progress by which the earth has been brought to be what it is today. The accounts cannot be fundamentally opposed, though man's interpretation may be seriously at fault. Adam, a historic personage. So far as the history of man on earth is concerned, the scriptures begin with the account of Adam. True, the geologist does not know Adam by name, but he knows and speaks of man as an early, continuing, and present form of earth life, above and beyond all other living things, past or present. We believe that Adam was a real personage who stands at the head of his race chronologically. To my mind, Adam is a historic personage, not a prehistoric being, unidentified and uncertain. If the Ussher chronology be correct, or even approximately so, then the beginning of the Adamic history as recorded in Scripture dates back about 4,000 years before the birth of Christ. We as a church believe that the current reckoning of time from the birth of Christ to the present is correct, namely 2023 years as of the date of my little video here. Not from last New Year's Day, January 1, but from the month that came to be known among the Hebrews as Nisan, or Ahab, corresponding with our late March and early April. So we believe that we are now living in the 2023rd year since the birth of Christ, and therefore 6,023 years since the beginning of Adam, the Adamic record. This record of Adam and his posterity is the only scriptural account we have of the appearance of man upon the earth. But we have also a vast and ever-increasing volume of knowledge concerning man, his early habits and customs, his industries and works of art, his tools and implements, about which such scriptures as we have thus far received are entirely silent. Let us not try to wrest the scriptures in an attempt to explain what we cannot explain away what we cannot explain. The opening chapters of Genesis and scriptures related thereto, Genesis 1 through 11, were never intended as a textbook of geology, archaeology, earth science, or man science. Holy Scripture will endure, while the conceptions of men change with new discoveries. We do not show reverence for the Scriptures when we misapply them through faulty interpretation. Primary and secondary causes. There has been much discussion over the alleged conflict between the teachings of science and the doctrines of the revealed Word concerning the origin of man. Let it be remembered that the term origin is almost invariably used in a relative sense. The mind of man is unable to grasp the fundamental thought of an absolute or primary origin. Every occurrence man has witnessed is the result of some previously acting cause or purpose, and that cause in turn was the effect or result of a cause yet more remote, thus a causal chain. Perhaps we have never been able to trace an effort to its primary or original cause. Man may say that he understands the origin of an oak in the acorn form from which it sprang, but is not the acorn the fruit of yet earlier oak. So in reality, rather in continuation than a beginning, yet there is something fascinating in the thought of a beginning. The persistence of a process once started is far less mysterious than its inception. It is not enough to refer effects to the first great cause. It is unsatisfying and not always reverent to answer questions as to how things came to be what they are by the easy statement that God made them so. God of the gaps, I guess. With such an answer, the scientific man has little patience, Richard Dawkins being such a man. The fact that all created things are the works of God and that all processes of nature are due to him as the administrator of law and order is to the scientific mind an axiom required neither argument nor demonstration. The botanist knows that God makes the plant grow, but he, weak mortal, is devoting time and energy of body, mind, and spirit to a study of the way in which God works such a marvelous miracle. The geologist knows that God created the earth, but the best effort of his life is to put forth in hope of finding out in some degree, however small, the method by which the Creator wrought this wondrous world. The astronomer, gazing into the starry depths, sees in their orderly procession the Lord eternal walking in his majesty and might. And in humility, the student of the heavenly bodies spends days and nights striving to learn a little of the way in which God worked out the marvel of the universe. In proportion as any one of these may learn of the ways of God, he becomes wise. To be able to think as God thinks, to comprehend in any degree his purposes and methods, is to become in that measure like unto him, and to that extent to be prepared for eventual companionship in his presence. The scientist is busily engaged in the study of secondary causes, the ways and means by which God works and through which he accomplishes his miracles, ever beginning, never ending. In his search for the truth, the student of science scarcely dares lift his eyes to look toward the first great cause, the eternal power that stands and operates behind and above all the secondary causes, the processes of nature. The origin of man. I'm going to leave it there. We're at 14 and a half minutes. The origin of man is next. This is Talmage's comments here, and I think it's very stimulating. And if you have thoughts, you want to share it, put them down, write them, text them in this comment. Write them in the comments and ask your questions. You have some questions of me for clarification, whatever. I'll do my best to get to them and answer them as best I'm able to, and we'll take it from there. But until then, I wish you continued success. Goodbye.